Okay, I think we're just going to start. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining our session on the Linchpin strategy and roadmap for 2019. My name is Sebastian. I'm part of the executive team at Seibert Media, and that's Reda. He's actually doing all the work. I think, can you just click the slide? It says Global Account Manager here, but that doesn't really do him justice. He's a big part of the team that does the product strategy for Linchpin, so he's really, he has the credentials to present about this topic.
Yeah. Somehow I'm kind of in this topic, so I can tell you a little bit about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where we want to go ahead with this topic. Yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning of the year we sat down and thought, what do we want to achieve with Linchpin in 2019? And we realized that Linchpin will turn 5 years old this year, so we started in, happy birthday! We started in 2014. It was actually a custom development, how Linchpin started. Then we made some agreements with the customer. They let us use it in the marketplace and sell it as a standard software. And we started selling Linchpin in the marketplace, or some apps of Linchpin suite in the marketplace in 2015. Yeah. And it has grown up a little since. So it's 5 years old this year, and we wanted to see what we have achieved to find out what we need to do to achieve even more. The staff that is currently dedicatedly working on Linchpin is 35 people. So there's 35 people in our company. There are 150 people at Seibert Media, and 35 of those people are working exclusively on Linchpin. That's product managers, that's developers, that's UX people, some marketing folks. But there's a lot of people who develop Linchpin and who keep on improving it.
Yeah, and actually this metric is growing, so even this family is growing to put in more invest into this topic. Right?
The license revenue that came out of Linchpin for us in 2018 was $1.8 million US. And if you do the math, you see that that's not a very good number just for the licenses. That's just the product team, not services included. So we do make a lot of money with services, managed hosting, stuff like that, introductory projects and stuff. But that's just the licenses, and that's just the people who work on the licenses, not the consultants and so on. So we keep on investing big in Linchpin to make an even better product and to help partners and companies who want to use it.
And we just started to implement kind of like programs to start scaling how we sell Linchpin, right? So we're at the starting point here.
So it's 150 companies or organizations who use Linchpin at this point. That was a pretty big number for us. So that's different instances running Linchpin, and we define Linchpin by using at least 5 of the core Linchpin apps. The whole suite, I think, has 10 or 11. Yeah. But if you use the five of the core apps, we say, okay, that's an intranet, and that's a real Linchpin customer. Right. And there's 150 organizations. Yeah. If you take a look at the where it is used globally, you see that there's a big concentration in Europe, of course. That's because we we sold it exclusively until I think last year or the year before. Yeah. So 80% of those 150 customers are in Europe, and most of them in the German-speaking countries of Europe. We have some instances in the US, we have some instances in South America, and then even one in Asia and one in Australia, I think. Yeah. And I think that's a good message for partners who are active in the other countries. So we basically are in the German market, and we don't render any services outside of Germany. So that's where we need partners to do that.
And we believe
there's with rolling it out there.
Right, and we believe there's a lot of potential, especially in the AMER region, to have kind of like a growing for this topic, right?
So how do those 150 companies look? What kind of instances are they? So 45% of those instances are 2,000 user tiers or bigger. So the main use case, Linchpin, is for big companies. You heard Adil talk about personalization. That's at the heart, at the core of Linchpin. You have a personalization engine. We have user data on users, and we tailor content, navigation, whatever we have, according to the information in the user profile. So it makes sense that big companies with a lot of employees use Linchpin. But what we've seen in the last 12 or 18 months, as we have grown the functionality, the overall functionality of Linchpin, there's a microblog, there's the Launchpad, there's other stuff that's really nice and neat and has functionality that more or less every company needs. We've seen smaller companies using Linchpin as well. They said personalization is not so important for us, but still the product as a whole is so good that we want to use it anyway.
And we bring in a lot of new ideas and innovations, which start to attract a lot of companies which are maybe not part of the Atlassian ecosystem using Atlassian technology, but are interested in this topic and start to search solutions and find this solution, right?
So that's user tiers.
No.
And no, I think it was yeah. So that's the just 2018. So last year we introduced Linchpin at 43, or Linchpin was introduced. It was not just Seibert Media, but partners and self-service as well. So we counted 43 new Linchpin instances, 43 new organizations that introduced Linchpin, and that's a year-over-year growth of 165%. Yeah. Which was kind of bombing for us. So we grew more or less in a linear curve. We had like, I don't know, 10 instances the first year, then we had like 20, we had like 30, and then last year it took basically off, and the growth was really more exponential than linear.
Yeah.
So when we sat down, we thought, what can we do in 2019 to continue the trend and sell even more Linchpin and have more companies use it? And what we came up with was make it super easy for customers and partners to roll out Linchpin on their own. So while Linchpin is a pretty complex product, a lot of apps, we always see that at Summit when people come to our booth and say, so what are you guys doing? Yeah, we have an internet based on Confluence. So what does it do? And then we start talking, and we talk for 30 minutes because it's not dry I/O, it's diagramming. That's an easy choice. But for Linchpin and internet, there's so much stuff to show, and there's so much complexity in it that it's really hard to introduce it at a company. And it was very hard for companies to do it on their own, and even for partners who knew the product well, it was kind of hard to know every app and every feature. Questions afterwards, okay? What we came up with was, let's make it super easy for partners as well as customers to introduce Linchpin on their own.
Right. And not just the product, even the message and the placeability of it by customers. Right? So. Okay,
so that's the roadmap for 2019. We basically have 4, you could say, epics. That's hubs, self-service, onboarding, and UX. And Rita in particular will tell you what those look like.
So these kind of epics are basically focusing on bringing more value and to the solution and making it even easier, not just for the configuration part, also for the usability on the user interface for the users itself. And when we talk about hubs, actually we mean the things like space directory and people directory, things like that are available, but they do not bring a lot of value for people who use Confluence. So we're trying to enhance these values, and we also try to implement a user interface, so a navigation, which makes it even easier to use the value we bring on feature level for the new hubs. So we call that hubs. And this, for this example, this is a space directory. We are having planned to change, and it will have a navigation same as you know it in the UI of the spaces, right? So you have a left navigation where you have the main feature, the access to the main pages, and on the right side you see a different layout of or presence of the spaces which you can access, and it is even more attractive as a normal list you do have. And we do also have the visibility option to change into a normal table view. So we do not kick out every kind of visibility Confluence brings in. No, we enhance the options of the visibility and bring more value even on the user interface, right? Not just on feature level. This is the first hub. Second hub is the people directory. We know from Confluence. We want to grow a little bit when it or change the way and the positioning of the people directory. People understand that as a list of names, and that's it. And you can search for names. But we want to change the way they work with that specific hub. They should invest more time to define, for example, enable dynamic filters, to define dynamic groups. They are working a lot with them, things like that. They can favorize people. They can recommend people to other people, things like that, right? Bringing more social feeling into the people directory. And we think about to also change the name into a contact hub, right? So then we have the news hub. So we do a lot with news management, and Confluence we call that blogs, right? But companies always compare that with the news management they do in intranets. And we think about to bring in a news hub or a news portal which allows to is dedicated to this specific topic, allows people to search for the news which are in the Confluence, which they have access to, and even brings more value in the usability, how they interact with this information, right? And the same goes for our event app. So we do have a specific app which allows to organize events for a company. We do not talk about personal meeting appointments. We do talk about organizational meeting appointments, right? This is something we want to make easier and even adapted, directly usable and directly manageable in the application. So we do have this event hub, which is already available, actually, and which allows or which introduces the same navigation way, the same UI, and brings in a lot of features which enhances the usability of Confluence, right? So, and we do also have the so-called Launchpad. We called it, until the last 2 months, we called it App Center, and now we have refreshed the name and called it Launchpad. This is actually a library where you can provide a lot of web applications which are used in the company, for people to have a library to search for the web applications they use in their daily work, right? They can favorize these applications and have them in their direct access sidebar of Linchpin, right? And we do also have the topic we introduced and talk about in the mission, making it easier to implement and to roll out Linchpin. We do have the self-service part where we have created a new Linchpin bundle, which inherits all plugins we do have at the moment and bundles it in one plugin, like it has it as a feature, right?
There will be a talk about the Linchpin
Right.
bundle afterwards.
Right.
Lucas is giving it, so if you're interested in that, just stay here.
Right. Okay. Then we have the configuration wizard. We're trying to make the configuration of the Linchpin suite even easier, and we start to implement an overview which helps the administrator to configure the most important topics when he starts to install the Linchpin suite or the bundle. And this is an additional point for the self-service part. We do also have on a self-service level the space templates, which is also now available. So you can just configure space templates by a click configuration in the administration and provide people final templates they can use to create templates with predefined structure and predefined parameters and stuff like this.
So if you need a new team room, you have a template for a team room.
Yeah.
If you want a project room, you have a template for a project room.
Right.
And so on.
Yeah. We do also want to implement dashboard templates. This is planned for Q3. So kind of like a generator where you just have predefined templates, or you can have a click configuration to define your own dashboard template, and it saves you time. You do not need to go into the editor to work with any kind of macros, and it will be also responsible, so it fit together, right? So this is dashboard templates we want to introduce. We do also have the onboarding part where we have a new feature which is also available now with the onboarding.
Adil already presented it in his demo, so that's giving in data or inputting data so that your user profile is already populated.
Right, okay. So, and we do also have created a new feature which is called guided tours. So you can highlight specific objects and define a tour, and people who visit the page can go through this tour and understand how to use a page, like the dashboard or the main search page in Confluence, things like that, right? And we want to introduce a new UX and navigation concept, which makes it even flawless to work and to access specific functionalities. And this is specifically also for the sidebar management. So we will adapt to the new Confluence sidebar on the right side. So the Linchpin features will be implemented into the new Confluence sidebar. And our global navigation feature we do have for the navigation items we provide in an intranet will get an alternative visibility where you can have it not horizontally, you can have it vertically, right? Yeah, and this is UX part. So
crowded agenda, pretty packed. If you take a look at the slides afterwards, if you want to, we have tried to give a very rough timeline of when we want those features available in the marketplace. Some of them are already available, as we mentioned, and the others are planned for either this quarter or the next quarter or the fourth quarter. Some of those are more work than others, so they will need some more time. But all in all, that's what we want to do in 2019, and that's how we want Linchpin to look at the start of next year.
If you do have questions, come afterwards to me or to Sebastian or Adil. Or
yeah, I just wanted to ask one thing about those smaller licenses. So those people are buying a solution out of the box from marketplace and can configure it all by themselves? Or do you always sell Linchpin with consultants?
No, they basically what you can do, and that's what a couple of companies have done, or a dozen or so. They have downloaded all the apps from the marketplace, and they have installed them and configured them, and they are using it on their own. We couldn't believe it at first when we saw it for the first time. So it was a customer not managed by a partner. We had never had contact with them, and they just downloaded all the apps. And then we reached out to them afterwards and said, are you doing okay? This is a lot of configuration stuff that you have to go through. But if there are a lot of admins in companies who know what they are doing, and they were able to configure it.
It's a small.
Like, are you providing onboarding on or videos how to do stuff so that people will are able to?
We do have.
Themselves, or do they require some assistance?
We do have a do-it-yourself guide where it is actually easy to go through this documentation and understand how to configure stuff like this. But there is a difference between small accounts and enterprise accounts. They're quite faster, quite more flexible, and they dive into this topic differently as a corporate would do, because a corporate has different structure and more politics, right? So it's
I saw that you sell a lot of big licenses, but you also have some small ones.
Most of those are the self-service licenses.
Small customers
Be an iPhone. At this point, we highly depend on partners showing customers. I mean, some figure out themselves. If you have an admin like Matt Bohr, no problem. You can
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
So, as I said, if you have questions, just come afterwards and we can talk about that. Thank you.